Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, guys. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Aliyan Podcast, Season 2. In today's episode, co-hosting with me are water bottles. Say hello.
Hello.
Yes, perfect, wonderful.
Hello.
And today we have a very special guest. I like the I like the DP you've got going on there, Sarah. I really do.
Thank you.
It's very good. Did you make it yourself?
Of course I did.
Wonderful. That should give the listeners an idea of who we are working with. So I'm not gonna take too much time with introductory formalities. Sarah, why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh dear God, I don't even know how to introduce myself. So
That's fine.
hello, my name is Sarah, also known as visual.sarah on Instagram. I am a freelance artist most of the time. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I enjoy video games. That's my niche, I guess. A lot of my artwork has to do with the early 2000s internet culture and kind of showcasing them in very weird, funky ways through graphic design, I guess. I mean, that's pretty much, I guess, that's what I do.
No, it's cool. I've been very curious about it since I properly started following your page. So obviously the audience wouldn't know, but the way I learned about you, Sarah. Actually, I never told you this as well. So I get to get sort of organic first impressions. So the way I found out about you, Sarah, was because you were, I think, exhibiting at like an art expo. And Ali told me that, oh, by the way, a friend of mine is exhibiting at such and such art expo, and I'm going there. Do you want to come? At the time, I didn't have a driver's license, so unfortunately, my answer to most things was no. It still is, however, a lot less. A lot less. I can now successfully convert about maybe 50 to 50. Nice, yes. 50 to 60% of hangout requests. Yeah, I don't know. I actually don't know what's happening with my health, guys. I've apparently the docs have been saying that I have slightly higher blood pressure than usual, but ever so slightly. However, I do feel it because my resting heart rate has increased now to, I think, about an average of 80, not 80 is normal, 90, 95, sometimes even 100 beats per minute. I don't even know why. But yeah, this unfortunately also causes a little bit of stuttering, which I've not really experienced much before. But when I get sort of into something, the stuttering kind of sort of goes away on its own as well. It's part and parcel of, in a sense, having as much energy as I do. But anyway, I digress way too much. However, the audience is used to it by this point, so you have to continue dealing with it, unfortunately. So I found out about you from, I think, an art exhibition. Ali, do you remember what art exhibition it was?
I think it was when you were displaying the game you played, which I completely broke, if you remember.
Oh, right. That was my senior exhibition at D3.
Oh, your senior design exhibition from AUS?
Yeah.
No way, I didn't
not
even know you
AUS.
guys did that.
No, not AUS. I wasn't at AUS. I was at Zayed University, and that was my senior project for my major. I did.
Because you didn't do undergrad at AUS, right? You did masters at
Nope.
AUS.
Yep.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, that basically I created an interactive installation in which people could basically come in and interact with the artwork that I made. Like why Ali said he went
Yep.
in and tried to break my game, which he actually almost did, which was concerning.
What do you mean by break? Like physically break or?
No,
No.
as in the whole concept, well, the whole idea, it's pretty long, but the whole idea, to sum it up, is it had to do with a period of time here, specifically in the Khalij, where whatever new pop culture item we would be introduced to, they would come at, like, the religious police would come at it from a point of view that because we don't understand this thing, we are going to ban it and say it's haram and it doesn't work with our religion without giving a proper explanation.
I did
One
not
example
even know that was a
is
thing.
yeah.
Go on.
So one
Yeah,
example,
I know.
Yeah, one example from my case studies that I used was Pokemon. Pokemon was a big thing, and it was a huge thing here. But then the Islamic police would come at it and be like, it was haram. And a lot of the people now that they're adults, they're like, yeah, those like sheikhs, those imams, they would say anything is like haram. And anything they don't understand, they would find it haram, which not only does it discredit what these religious people are saying, but also almost puts a bad image on what the religion really is.
No, most
And on
definitely.
another, yeah, and on another sense, it creates like a very unhealthy relationship between the two. And my art installation was supposed to be a way in which it kind of I wanted my viewers or the people to experience the art space to almost feel that sense of restrictiveness, but also this sense of false nostalgia. And I created a game where once you play, you're almost immersed, but then you enter a particular place and you can never get out of the place unless you exit and restart the game all over again or just stay there stuck for hours and hours on end.
Was that a glitch or was it intentional?
No, no, no. It was all intentional.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's a lot of surface level detail. Go a little bit deeper. What did you actually make? And also, I guess the overarching question, which you can address sort of after you've explained, if you'd like to, is how did your project or what you were doing counter, the same hyper religious sort of, uh, you know, shunning or banning of these kind of things? How did you tackle that? Was that like a secondary intention? Was that your primary intention? How do you think you did that? And of course, if you go a little bit more into detail as to what you did, because I'm actually very interested. It is a very intriguing concept. But yeah, as much detail as you'd like, by the way.
Okay.
Hmm.
So actually, I think it makes much more sense if I don't know if there's like a way for you to put up how the art installation looks like. I have pictures of it on my Instagram
Yeah.
on how I've set it up, but to answer your question, if whether it did anything to solve the issue, I don't think my aim was to really solve the issue, but more of bring more awareness that hey, this happened at this particular point and these are the consequences of said thing happening. And it caused, for example, for a lot of people to have a very negative relationship with religion, especially when, you know, these religious figures, and when we were kids, we were taught to just, okay, anything is haram, is we should stay away from, that's bad, that's like a no-go, and we didn't even have the opportunity to even question why it was. They're just like, no, that's it, done.
How'd you go about doing that? Do you have examples?
I
And
I remember for like a good 6 months, all I did was interview people to just really understand kind of how it is that they felt during the time or what their experience was for those things, because a lot of the people that are currently my friends right now, they indulge in the same interests, and like I know I wasn't the only one that noticed that this thing happened when I was younger, and almost all of them said pretty similar things, but now they look at these like imams or those people that are supposed to be saying the word of God or preaching the word of God and his messenger. They don't trust them. And I remember it was a pretty controversial thing to delve into, so I had to be like really careful with it. But it was very interesting. It's not, I don't think it's something that one should be.
I understand.
I just, yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand. Look, tahrim of things that you don't understand on, I guess you could say, unfounded basis is not a good thing at all. I have a background in Islamic education beyond just school for the past gosh, 12. Yeah, no, longer. About 13, 14 years. And I couldn't agree with you more. It happens sometimes, and I guess it's good that you did something. Without going into too much detail about the issue itself, because that's not really what we're
Right.
talking about. But it's
Right.
good that you did something to bring light to it. Okay, so I like that. So essentially, with your senior project, you said you designed a game sort of artistic immersive experience, and before that you interviewed a group of people to try and understand the issue in greater depth, and I guess maybe gain an understanding of what their experience has been with the issue. Do I understand correctly?
Sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
That's fine. I was saying that in order to facilitate your design project, which was an immersive artistic experience in the form of a game, the first thing you did, or one of the first things you did, was you interviewed a group of people, correct?
Yes. So
Okay.
how
And
it
then,
works?
yeah, go on.
With,
Yeah, go on. Go on.
Sorry.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
So
Go on.
how it really works for reaching our final year in my major is that our senior project or our capstone or whatever what other universities usually call it, rather than it be a semester long, ours is 1 year long. So we have a good 6 months in which we can do our research and just get our case studies and get all of our inspiration or whatever it is that we need to figure out on what it is that we want to display for the end result. And then we have another 6 months in which we really just experiment and figure out how it is that we want to display our topic or showcase our topic, or what is the best art medium or what is the best way to express what it is that we are tackling or dealing with, or whatever our topic is. And so for me, actually, I remember that I wanted to showcase my topic. I don't even remember if I had like a different topic or it was the same thing, but I remember I wanted to build an arcade machine as my final senior exhibition, and I was working on that idea for so long. And I think 2 months before the show, I completely scrapped that idea and then changed it by creating a room, like an old room, and then getting a really old computer, the old screen and
I understand.
it's still
CRT monitors.
yes. And I had to figure out, I have never taken a game design class before, so I had to figure out how it is I was going to make my game and how it was I was going to, do all those things. And I don't even know how I managed to pull it off in less than 2 months.
That happens. Student energy. It comes from unexpected places. Yeah,
It's
it
crazy.
Basically, just the last minute of the last period of projects, students gain an unbelievable amount of energy.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
it's driven by pure urgency. We're very natural procrastinators, human beings.
True.
Basically, we only act if it's a very interesting thing, and I've just now sort of not realized it, but I've just now sort of formalized it. We only act if something is affecting our base level of comfort.
No.
We only act if something is affecting our minimum level of comfort, right? Distant deadlines do not do anything to our level of comfort. Close deadlines do a lot to our level of comfort, so we act. But yeah, no, it's interesting, and it's amazing that you pulled it off in 2 weeks. So what I wanted to understand is sort of the process, and I'm glad that you kind of walked us through the initial stages. So you walked us through how the project actually works, how you have a year to do it, how you ended up scrapping an old idea in favor of a newer one, and then I'm assuming somewhere down the line come the interviews that you mentioned. But what I want to understand is, what did you actually end up making in some detail. If you could explain this game that you made, what did it contain? What did you do? And by the way, if you want to like sort of display something, you could maybe link it in the WhatsApp chat or something like that, and I'll screen share it. So, or even the Zoom chat itself, if it's convenient. So, if there's a particular post or a particular image or anything, then I can sort of pull it up, and it'll definitely show in the screen recording.
Okay. So I'm just gonna show you.
Okay.
I guess a link the.
Oh, you can screen share from your side as well, by the way, if it's more convenient.
It's fine. I'll just send in the link on the WhatsApp.
Also, you mentioned you had to redo the project, change your project pretty close to the end of the year.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing why you had to change it? Is it a requirement or is it something personal?
No, it wasn't a requirement. It was more because the idea was there, but it's just displaying it in a form of an arcade I realized wasn't really gonna work. So I guess during one of our critiques, someone brought up, which I'm glad someone brought up and was familiar with the whole gaming side, because obviously what fine art professor would understand gaming lingos and what I was really trying to do. But one of the professors I remember brought up something about you wouldn't really play an RPG game on an arcade machine, would you?
No.
And that's when it really clicked that, okay, displaying my game in the form of an arcade machine was not going to work. And so I had to find another medium in which I was going to do it. I thought about hacking, not hacking, but basically using an SNES and again like a CRT screen to really do it, but that was also really complicated and I didn't have the time and it wasn't really going to work. So the best thing that I decided on doing was just showcasing it on like a really ancient computer and displaying it in a way where it's placed in a room and you can see everything that I've placed there or I've had there in that room is almost intentional, in which
Okay.
it's very
This is a good point to sort of show what you're talking about.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I've shared the screen. It's visible now. Go on, Sarah. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah. No, it's fine. So you can see that I have my game which is turned on and you can hear the music of the game almost playing. And the thing is, the way it was displayed in D3, it was almost as if like the moment you walked into the building, you can really hear it almost echoing and it just following you around in a really creepy way.
That's very interesting.
And on top of that, like from the ancient, I don't want to say ancient, but
You make people who are 30 years old feel ancient.
yeah, I'm just thinking people in this time period feel really, really
Yeah.
old now. That's not what I meant.
Yeah, ancient I think is a few centuries, give or take. But that's fine. That's fine. Go on.
But really, what I was really trying to capture is almost that sense of what a lot of us almost universally went through or felt, or the environment. I was trying to replicate the environment that. 1 second. Sorry.
That's fine.
Okay. I was almost trying to replicate the environment that a lot of us grew up in, which, obviously it involved me looking through a bunch of photos of younger me or younger relatives or people that I knew and really studying what it was that was almost, I don't know what the word is, but it was almost similar. And what I found was that, for example, a lot of houses, printed wallpaper or, having that really ugly print wallpaper is something that is featured in a lot of households. Or, for example, having a
Yeah.
bunch of trinkets everywhere, which
Yeah.
I have in the office desk.
Yeah, I can
And
see that on the
that,
top and in between on the shelves.
and
And
that,
also, even the table, the desk is accurate to what I remember from that period.
yeah, a
Yeah,
lot of
it
people
is.
It
did.
always used to be just a small area to sit, while everything else is filled with cupboards and shelves.
Yeah, cupboard, shelves, drawers, retractable sort of keyboard tray. You don't really see those anymore. Um, but yeah, it's amazing. I really like the
Yeah.
vibe you've gone for here. Can I ask you, what was since you said everything was purpose built, what was the idea behind putting this frame on the wall with what I can only imagine? What is that? Is it Ayatul Kursi?
Honestly, I don't really remember what it is.
Hmm.
I really wish I could remember, but all I remember is it had to do a lot with my topic, and it was something to do with you cannot force people to believe in something that is not right, or something along the lines. I don't want to say too much in case I am wrong, but all I can say is that I remember it linked so much with with um my what my topic was, and it was a way of linking it back or making it specific to, you know, being set in the Khalij, or in the Arab world.
So this is going back to the idea. I'm just to make it a little lighter. This is going back to the idea of I guess shuyukh and sort of maybe less learned scholars, making things that are not haram. Is that
Right.
right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine because I think if you just leave the term forced belief sort of floating around without context, that's a
I
little
know
bit
it sounds
dangerous.
wrong.
It
Also,
sounds very wrong. But no, I know exactly what you're talking about. And you've already established the context for that. Plus, the good thing about podcasts is most sane people don't start listening from the middle. Most sane people,
yep.
right? Ali, that may or may not include you. I'm kidding.
Don't
Also,
cancel me.
Nah,
also,
I don't think it's
something I
cancelable.
remember from that period.
Yes, please.
Whenever someone would say something about this is haram, they wouldn't even know what Sheikh Haraam said it. They just say they heard from this person.
Yeah.
It would be just a constantly shared message. If not sure how many people experience it, but nowadays you can sometimes you get the WhatsApp shares that keep going around.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's similar but earlier.
Yeah. I
It's
think
of
that's a beautiful. Yeah, please go on. I don't want to cut you
it's
off.
of
Go on.
From my experience, it is often just without citations. If you ask for a source, they don't usually have them. I think with my parents,
For sure.
they just say they heard it from that person.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if they can at least name somebody, would be good.
Yep.
But a lot of the times, it's a little bit unfounded, you know. But on the lighter side of thing, if it's not affecting your life negatively, and your parents, this is just for the younger audience especially, and your parents say, you know what, I think you shouldn't do that. If it's not affecting your life in such a way that it's one ridiculous, like for example, oh, you shouldn't play Pokemon because somehow it's shirk, right? I don't even know how.
It was
If
basically
it's
that.
that ridiculous, obviously, you question it and you're probably going to find out that that was nonsense anyway. But
It was basically that.
it's a fine line. It's a fine line because what you don't want is, first of all, with parents, and obviously I'm able to say that because I'm getting older. With parents, they'll often say things they think are good for you because, to the best of their knowledge, they're good for you. Turns out, though, unfortunately, they could be very heavily misinformed. What you want is to reach a level of understanding where you can talk to your parents about that, or where, and not just parents, but just family or elders in general. You want to reach a level of understanding where you can sort of build something of a boundary. And I'm using these terms very delicately because, most of our audience is well aware of the ground realities of, Southeast Asian South Asian, subcontinental, and Middle Eastern parenting. They're very aware of the ground realities of that. But you want to be able to reach some level of understanding, right? Where it doesn't become a case of, okay, I'm going to specifically do this thing because my parents told me how to do it. Rebellion, right? Because
Right.
rebellion can be dangerous, rebellion can be hurtful as well. That's the kind of side we don't see, you know? If your parents actively see you trying to rebel against everything they're telling you not to do, that's going to hurt, and it's probably going to cause them to react even more negatively. What you do want, if it ever comes to this kind of thing, and I know I'm saying something dangerous, is if you're aware, like well aware, that they might be telling you something that has no basis. And again, I stress you're aware of this. And actually, the reason why this has backing is because one of my uncles, who is a scholar, a very qualified learned Islamic scholar, is the one who said this to me. If your parents are telling you off for something, and you know that, okay, yeah, they don't know what they're saying here, the best thing for you to do is to, put your head down, smile, and then when they're done, just walk away. What you don't want is, elders and parents telling you not to do something, and you go into sort of rebel mode, and that's dangerous because it leads to a lot of toxic and regrettable behavior on both sides. And this I speak purely from my experience and the experience of some of my friends. The last thing that anyone wants to do is to fight or argue with their parents, because no matter how valid your argument is and how invalid their argument is, or how valid their argument isn't, rather, you always end up feeling guilty after. I think in most cases you're like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have fought, right? And by all means, feel free to disagree. This is a very open platform. I'm not here to sort of impose my own will or anything. But yeah, I just thought that, since we're talking about, sort of cultural prohibition or religious prohibition of things without any acute Islamic or religious basis, I really wanted to sort of highlight the other side of things, where a vast majority of young kids will use that as an excuse to rebel against their parents, when really what they want to do, and I'm really using this carefully, what they actually want to do is know that they're right, sort of maybe prove that they're right in some way, without actually rebelling or hurting their parents, because no one wants to hurt their parents, right? I hope I made some sense. But
I know, of
and please feel, by the way, guys,
You
please
did
feel free to give your input on this. It's I don't
you,
want it to be one-way traffic.
you did make some sense as an adult talking to your parents.
Yeah, yeah.
But remember, uh, during these times we were kids, around maybe
Exactly.
six,
Yeah.
7, 8.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I
So let
prefaced this
and
with, for the younger audience. That's why I
uh,
prefaced this whole thing
yeah,
with. But yeah, please continue, Ali.
and often it was often because it was popular at the time.
Hmm.
Uh, you would probably be interested in it. Might have already have to be doing something, have a collection maybe or something. I know of a few people who had, a lot of Pokemon cards, for example.
Hmm.
Once I forgot the name, Isha'ah went around that Pokemon, especially the cards, are shirk or something. I can't remember the
Yeah.
exact one. Some of the parents just burnt all the cards.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that's what
Yeah,
you don't want. That's what you don't want to see as a kid. You
yeah.
do not want to see
It's
that.
I
Yeah,
it's
think
not
that's
just
the
that's
issue.
unfortunately, and we're not holding back here. The good thing is we're
Yeah.
all adults, right? Maybe 5 to 10 years from now, we'll all be parents, so that gives us a
yeah,
little bit of authority. That kind of behavior is toxic and
yeah.
entirely wrong on the parents' part,
And I think
And if
entirely,
another
you're a kid,
thing,
without
you got
question.
it.
Yes, Sarah, go ahead.
I think another thing is that it's one thing maybe I didn't emphasize on the imams or the sheikhs or the religious people that were coming out to speak against, for example, why Pokemon could be, for example, not or dangerous to our kids, is when really researching and looking into why it was firstly banned in Saudi Arabia, there was some sense as to why it was banned. It made sense, right? Because, for
Mm,
example, something such as Pokemon cards promoted gambling, which is prohibited in Islam. And
yeah,
another thing was that the idea of having Pokemons evolve from one thing to another, they thought was promoting the idea of Darwinism. And so they were coming at it from that basis.
Yeah.
But
Fun fact.
unfortunately, people, when word spreads, things get changed and,
Fuzzy,
the
yeah.
mess.
I always like
Yeah.
to use
Yeah.
the example of Chinese whispers, right?
Yeah.
The farther you are from the source, the less likely the information you have is to be
And it's like,
is to
it
be
got
accurate.
so
Yeah.
crazy. It got so crazy to a point where it's just like, yeah, if you say Pikachu, it's like you're saying Shaitan or Iblis or God knows
Yes.
what.
Facts.
Or if
Also,
if you're saying like particular Pokemon names, it's like you're saying some kind of bad thing, and all of a
Yeah,
sudden
that's
you're like,
that's what I'd like to call cultural sort of. I can say, yeah, I don't know the word for it, but yeah, let's just call it cultural nuances to an otherwise very normal thing. Yeah, that was just
and
interesting. Yes, please, Ali, go ahead.
and if you just if you even bring up a Yu-Gi-Oh card,
Yeah,
I don't think you're leaving the house for at least a few days.
yeah, yeah.
honestly,
No, you know
or
what? It's the spread of it, right?
Yeah.
Well, how nice would it be for a young scholar or young student of a hawda, or as we call it in Islamic university, to come out and say, guys, Pokemon cards are cool, and Yu-Gi-Oh cards are cool. Don't gamble with them though.
Yeah.
XOXO, and that would very much clear the air, right? But unfortunately,
honestly,
you have a lot more people prohibitive, a lot more people prohibiting, and a lot more people against things out of fear of them getting out of hand, even if that fear is genuine. Then you have people, as you guys both correctly said, trying to understand the thing, right? Because if they
right,
try to understand it, then they won't prohibit it. Rather, they try to make guidelines around its use, which on the highest level of Islamic study is what happens, right? There are guidelines for use of card games. There are guidelines for use of games like chess and checkers. There are guidelines for everything, right?
right,
Some scholars still believe, through and through, without question, chess as a game is haram. Other scholars argue, well, it's not used as an instrument of gambling anymore, right? So it takes a high level of understanding, and I guess to maybe sort of conclude this point, because we do have other things to talk about that I think are cooler, at least, and less cancelable.
depressing.
Just to sort of wrap this whole thing up, right? I think it all boils down to understanding, right? Understanding, first of all, why your child is into certain things like card games, then understanding those card games themselves, then understanding the rulings around card games and gambling and whatnot. And really, it all boils down to a very universal belief that I always try to push, is that education is really the solution to very many different forms of corruption, even if it's just corrupted understanding resulting in egregious and outrageous actions from parents to kids, from kids to parents, whatsoever. When it comes to gaming instruments and these kind of things, and that's what it is. Whenever you see something in front of you, a piece of information that has to do with tahrim or tahleel of something, question it. Your first instinct should be to question it. Does it make sense or not? If it doesn't make sense, find out the actual basis of it. And unfortunately, this is something that's not very common in the older generation. However, as the older generation grows older, so do we. So hopefully, this can sort of take a big change as we go down to have children in the coming decades, inshallah ta'ala. So yeah, I mean, it's a good discussion, but I found a really interesting point that could perhaps lead to a segue into another topic. And that point was when we were talking about the actual, philosophy behind your project, Sarah, and then what you did and how you went about making it. And, then we ended up, subhanAllah, screen sharing and actually showing everyone what it is. Is that you, by the way?
Oh, and the last one, yeah,
Yeah, how
that's
sweet.
me.
So yeah, well, we're just showcasing the entire thing. By the way, it's beautiful. Also, I'm very interested to know, by the way, before we continue, where did you actually acquire this gear from? Because I feel like these kind of computers are harder to find functional
They are. It
than
was
they are.
impossible to get. It was so impossible to get. It. I remember I was searching high and low for every single thing currently displayed. Some of the things were like I've had for many, many years. And some
Yeah.
things I had to talk to so many people to just get and buy and try to get. But this one, I remember one of my mom's friends has this computer, and I think she still uses it, and she was kind enough to lend me this.
Oh wow,
Oh, it's still being used.
It's still being
That
used, which is
that's
crazy.
incredible. I, looks like it was very very well maintained, very well serviced. That's good. But then again, we can't really see the actual computer unit, so it might
Oh,
actually be a good
the
PC.
computer unit actually is like you can see it. It's behind the tree, actually, covered with a bunch of
yeah.
stickers.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that doesn't look
it's
like
it's
it.
it's more
The the
modern
only thing
computer.
that doesn't
Yeah,
fit.
The only thing that doesn't
yeah, yeah.
fit.
That's what I'm saying. It's like okay, so the monitor can be old, the speakers and the keyboard can be old, but it looks like the PC itself is not that old. Exposed. And I'm not
I
kidding.
Yeah, no, I here's the thing, right? So I worked on a program called RPG Maker, and
Yes.
I tried to export the game in a way where it would run on like an old, extremely old computer that I
Old
have
hardware. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
still runs Windows Vista.
Mm-hmm.
But for the life of me, I could not get the game to work. And I think I asked Ali for help actually with it. He couldn't
Yep.
figure it out either.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think most things just don't have compatibility options for Vista because
Yep.
I think Vista lasted less than a year.
This didn't last that long, but it's also because I think you're using a newer RPG Maker version, right?
Yeah,
That
that's
could
true.
also
I
be.
wasn't using like
Yep.
That
the
could also
old
be.
RPG
It was
Maker.
developed way after Vista was already gone. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That would be the issue. But it's incredible. You got it working. I think your project really makes a statement, and I thank you for explaining it to us. And I think this whole explanation sort of makes way. I'm gonna stop screen sharing now. I think this whole sort of explanation really makes way for us to segue into, I guess, the second thing that we wanted to talk about, which is, perception of competence in individuals, especially those young graduates of Emirati origin, right? I just want to say it's like sort of opening statement. I think it's a really good way to sort of lay the foundation for this discussion. Is that the whole idea behind me from the very beginning, asking you, Sarah, to go into so much depth about what you did and how you did it and who you talked to and what the idea was and what the technicalities were to a level of detail that's digestible to most. The reason I went to so much depth is to make a very, very, very important point. We are currently talking to two Emiratis, actually. Well, we being me, currently talking to two Emiratis right now, my co host and I guess, who are of an extremely high level of competence, academically and professionally. And I think the way that you've laid the foundation for this project, built on it, and then actually shown us at the end is as true of a testament as we're going to get to all of that sort of condensed into one body of work. And with that, I think Sarah, I take the floor away. I think it's only fair to let you and Ali really express your frustrations on the actual situation. So Sarah, maybe I guess I'll build a little bit of background. So Sarah and I were basically talking on Instagram, and I saw her story, and then I actually replied to it regarding, and the story was specifically regarding employment for fresh Emirati graduates and the many things that can sort of hinder that. I actually have a screenshot of our chat, Sarah. Do you want me to pull it up?
Yeah, that's fine.
I think I should do that. Yeah. because I think it's better to let you and your words lay the foundation to this, because I don't really want to be the one to have the greatest input, because it's not something that affects me directly. So, I actually started with sort of, I wouldn't say an antithesis, but I sort of started with a different question, which says, a lot of companies are opening many positions due to democratization laws. And then I read on in your stories, and I saw how companies are blatantly rejecting applications because they know that the person applying is an Emirati, and they have this perception of incompetence, right? And
Right.
that really shocked me, and it made me think about even sending my first message. And yeah, and then also I said, again, and I will admit to sort of, as being the outsider that I am, I will admit to sort of being slightly, I wouldn't say defensive, but sort of, hey, there's another kind of side to consider here. Not with the intent of being insensitive, but just purely just my worldview, right? And I guess the point I was trying to make here is when I said opportunities for non-Emiratis in engineering are basically non-existent, since all the firms are looking for locals for their Emiratization programs. That was to illustrate, I think, a larger point where it's harder for engineers to get jobs nowadays in general, because Ali is an engineer and he's Emirati and he's not found one yet, and it took me quite a while to find one as well. So I
I
think,
think a better example would be my brother, who's been looking for a job for 3 years. He's an engineer, a mechanical engineer. He's been looking for a job for 3 years.
yeah.
Still not hard.
Yeah, and I think he says Emiratis come. So now then, Sarah, you make the point here that the forced Emiratization is also causing issues, which is really the flip side of the spectrum that doesn't get
Right.
considered, where the companies that don't want to hire locals are forced to hire locals and then not give them any work to push the stupid narrative that we don't do anything, without pointing fingers here and there. I don't know about the UAE. I can't speak for the UAE because I'm not from the UAE. But I do know in other Arab countries where this sort of citizenship employment is pushed, or localization at least, if we're not going to use the word Emiratization, is heavily encouraged. And this, by the way, led to the invite for the podcast, as you'll see here. But I do know of other countries that do the exact same thing. Okay, that's a huge spoiler, by the way. But I'm not going to edit it at all. That was a very topical sort of screenshot that showed up. Just massive spoiler. But anyway, yeah, that was all. I think you all saw what that was. That was all podcast gear. Anyway, make of that
I
what you
spoiled
will,
it even more.
audience. Make of that what you will, audience. Anyway, yeah. So I'm gonna shut up because I have a habit of talking quite a lot, and I genuinely give the two of you the floor. But the flip side that we didn't consider is that many localization programs, I don't know about the UAE, so I'm not going to comment. Many localization programs have this thing, unfortunately. And my father, as both an employee and later on in life as an employer, sort of observing other companies, noted that they'll hire locals. Other companies and many companies, in fact, will hire locals. Not talking about the UAE, but other sort of Arab countries as well. And then they'll not give them any work. They'll literally say things like, "Stay home, and your paycheck will get to you at the end of every month." And to be honest, for some people that's like, "Oh, great, wonderful, excellent." But I think to intelligent people as yourselves, Ali
Yeah.
and Sarah, that's an insult. It's a big
Yeah.
insult.
Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
had to experience that, I would first of all be outraged, and then I'd literally try to force my way into the system and say, "Listen, look, I'm employed. If you're not going to give me any work, I'm going to show up at work with my freaking employment contract, and I'm going to sit there until you give me something to do, because I have a right as an employee to do that. And what are you going to do about it, huh? Tell the equivalent of the Ministry of Labor in those other countries, so that I can also tell them that, hey, by the way, they've hired me, but they're not giving me any work." Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I have a very sort of emphatic and action forward way of dealing with these kind of things, which can be dangerous, but it works, right? So with that, really, I think that summarizes pretty much. I'm glad I got it out of the way. That summarizes pretty much how I feel about the situation. But Sarah, I want you to give us a little bit more background and really express how you and then how Ali feel like this thing. How long has it been going on for? Do you know people that are affected?
Yeah.
What actually happens? Literally, just reveal everything
First
without
of all,
naming
yeah,
any
we will
corporations, so we
not.
don't get sued.
We will not name names. We will not
No need to
bring
name
people
corporations or
into
individuals.
this. We
Easy.
will not be canceled today. We will not be sued. Don't worry. We'll be fine.
Sued.
So
For the
I
most
think
part.
first, for the most part. So first thing, I think it's best that I preface that I am not the first one to speak on this topic or this issue, and I am not going to be the last one to be speaking about it. And also, this issue is not a black and white thing. It's definitely a very complicated issue in which there is no right answer. Both sides, like both expats and locals, are frustrated on different ends. And so, for me, where I'm coming from my side as a local on the issues that we're currently going through or what we are currently experiencing, whilst also at the same time trying to understand the other side, right? Because it's not I'm the only one that's facing the issues, give the attention to me, 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 me. So I sent a screenshot on that I found very interesting on Twitter of someone basically saying why Emiratis can't find work. And there's it's very obvious that this person was trying to trigger a group of
see.
people,
I see.
which it worked. And it got me thinking. I wanted to see what other people or what other people were thinking, which is why I posted it on my Instagram and, kept an open floor and had people. There are things
this
that
is
I
when
did.
this is when we spoke about it as well. You're talking
Yeah.
about when we spoke about it as well.
Yes, when we spoke about it. And so I know that a majority of the people that I know and that are following me on Instagram, they're mostly expats more than locals.
Yeah.
But just seeing both sides of the opinion has, first of all, really helped me understand the other side and what they're thinking, really. But also, seeing the frustration of my people is at the same time very upsetting, because what I also want to emphasize is that we do not hate expats. We do not hate, or we do not feel negatively towards. Actually, we're so grateful for everything that, the expats have done for our country, because even though we have set the foundations, you guys were there to help, and you guys are there to have helped the economy grow, have helped the country grow. But at the same time, seeing this discrimination happening in our own country, where us as locals are being treated almost as minorities, is crazy.
Interesting. Okay. So you actually sent the screenshot on
Yeah.
on the chat. Okay, I'm gonna share
Yeah.
that then. 1 second. Let me go to it. No, that's not the right WhatsApp.
What? I have two
Not-
things.
That's my
Not the right
business
chat.
WhatsApp. Absolutely not the. That's not the right WhatsApp. Forget the right chat. That's WhatsApp business. Anyway,
I want to
this
add
is the
two
right
things.
WhatsApp. Here. Yep, there we go. So let's see. The reason why Emiratis can't find work is because, one, they can't be underpaid because, unlike the expat population, they have laws dictating their minimum wage. That is true. Emiratis can, as you know, just statement number one. It's definitely not a reason why they can't find work, but statement number one is absolutely true. There are laws dictating Emirati minimum wage, but those laws don't apply until Emiratis actually get jobs. So, bad argument. Anyway, number two, Emiratis can get you deported if you disrespect them. Bullshit. Sorry for my language. I studied. So I think Ali knows this, but sorry, you might not know. I studied in Greenwood International School from grade 5 to 8. Have you heard of Greenwood International School?
No.
Okay, a lot
You
of my
told me
local
once and
friends
that's it.
somehow have heard of it. It was a school that was, and I kid you not, I have the KHDA reports to back it. 92% local or Arab. I think it was local actually. because there were actually more locals there than there were Arabs from other nationalities. So I I did my lower middle school, all of it from grade 5 to 8 in that school. And let me tell you something, right? Kids will be kids. And those kids will use misinformation and will use, I just get a false sense of entitlement, an emphasis on a false sense of entitlement to try and intimidate you into thinking that you were nationally superior to them because you were inferior to them because of being from a different nationality. Fast forward to AUS, and I realized just how nonsensical the foundational idea of what an Emirati is actually like was in my head. How completely wrong it was, right? Because I actually started meeting Emiratis that spoke to me, engaged with me, joked with me, laughed with me, hugged me, played sport with me on exactly the same level with no discrimination.
For example, these
So
water bottles.
and the reason I sort of made this point. Sorry, Ali, can you repeat that? I think I cut you
I
off.
think, for example, these water bottles.
Yeah, right, exactly. And the reason why I made this entire background, by the way, was because point number 2 is really reflective of that. Emiratis can get you deported if you disrespect them. No, they can't. That's something the kids tell you. It doesn't
Yeah.
actually happen. No, it doesn't. It really does not.
If you,
Generally speaking, don't disrespect people, but I think you
yeah.
could get into other forms of trouble for disrespecting anyone in this
Also, I want
country.
to add something for this as well.
Yes, please.
Two things. One
Yes.
of them is the first thing. This, if you go to the top 1% of the local population of any country, nearly any country,
Yeah.
and top 1%, top half, the top percentages.
Yeah.
If you go to the top percentages of the citizens of any country, and you try to disrespect them, they probably do things to ruin your life anyway.
Yeah.
No matter
Yeah,
what.
they'll
True.
show a sense of entitlement for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true.
This
Yeah.
here the deportation is just the top percentage.
Hmm.
That sometimes rarely have the ability, but don't usually do it at all.
But
From
honestly,
experience with them.
it's on the topic of deportation. Maybe this is just sidetracking. Look at the
Yeah.
people that we do actually deport. We don't just deport anyone. We deport anyone that threatens the safety and security of our country
Criminals.
more
yeah,
than
for sure.
more than anything. And then it's just this propaganda that don't be friends with locals or else they'll deport you. It's just
No, that's nonsense.
Really?
They cannot deport you for. Yeah, no. I think we've established that it's rubbish. Ali, what was your point number 2? Do you have a point number 2 as well? Or was that this?
I may have gotten a bit distracted. I'll come back to it once I remember it.
Absolutely, that's fine. So I guess we'll read number 3 then. I don't even want to read this because I can already see it going horribly wrong. But I will. They're lazy because they get everything handed to them on a silver plate. Okay, and now they're going to get even lazier now that the UAE is forcing companies to take them in. Okay, so I have counter arguments for each. I'm going to do it sentence by sentence, and then I'm going to let you do the counter arguments because you probably have better counter arguments than I do. TLDR, the reason can I just say, by the way, Sarah, right? I like to sort of take apart Instagram arguments that are silly. I like how the TLDR is bigger
It's
than
longer than the
it's
actual.
longer. I think it's a line or two longer than the actual. I feel like it started as a TLDR, but it was so fueled by the herder mouth breathing of whoever wrote this that they just let themselves go. Which, it's nice to see. It's nice to see. One thing I like about like people who are genuinely jahil is that give them some time and they'll really let their like ignorance show. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it'll come out. You'll see it.
Yeah.
And then eventually a smart person will realize, okay, this is the part where you just stop talking and let them finish talking and then walk away and then watch them just explode in their own sort of mouth foam that's come out from their unfounded rage. But anyway, TLDR, the reason why Emiratis can't get jobs is because they are already more privileged than the majority of the population. I like how this
I remembered
sentence
my
sort
other
of
point.
negates everything that they've said so far. I love it. Anyway, Ali, you were saying?
I remembered my other point.
Yeah.
I was focusing on the disrespect part.
Yeah.
Here, the culture is very heavily on relies on respect.
Yeah, it does.
But also the laws it's not just disrespecting people, for example, just completely. So, for example, just completely slandering someone everywhere you can. There are laws against that here. And in most countries, if you're not a citizen of the country and you break the laws, the country won't spend resources to put you in prison. They'll usually deport you.
Yeah.
It's the same case here. If you there have been multiple cases where expats were disrespecting other expats that got fined and put in the news and got deported because of the laws that apply to
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah. No, that's very extreme cases,
Yeah,
right?
I
Those
feel
are
like
very.
that's also adding to the idea that if you do something to Emiratis, disrespect them according to this one, they'll deport you. But I feel
You've
like
made a
that adds
very
to it.
valid point here. You've made an extremely valid point here, by the way, which is what I
But
was trying
it
to do
would
as well. You delocalized the argument.
Yeah, but
Disrespect
it would be
itself.
just normal rules, normal
That's
laws in
exactly what I
general.
was trying to say, right? Thank you. Disrespect here as an idea is intolerable. Whether it's an Emirati disrespecting another Emirati, or a non-Emirati disrespecting an Emirati, or the other way around, or a non-Emirati disrespecting another non-Emirati, you're going to get in trouble for being disrespectful. I think disorderly conduct, in and of itself, here the laws regarding that are stricter, right? Things
Yeah.
like definitely they are things like bad language, things like unsolicited photography, things like recording in public places, things like hand signs that are considered offensive in culture. Many of these things are completely intolerable here because you want to preserve sort of an environment and an air of respect and mutual cooperation wherever you go, right? Let's not ignore, the elephant in the room here, which is to say that, again, going back to this idea, Emirati children, middle schoolers that have not been parented properly, going into even their senior years, can exhibit a similar kind of childish behavior, right? That has a lot more to do with them as individuals than it does have to do with their nationality. And I really have to stress this. Parenting, entitlement, coaching, a lot of these things, they come from the home, right? And if you're going to use that as a convenient excuse to sort of paint an entire nationality a certain color, regardless of whether that nationality is Emirati or another nationality, you, my friend, are doing yourself a great disservice. You're oversimplifying, you're being untruthful, and really what you're doing is giving way to something, and as much as it's going to trigger the other side of the argument, you are the one being racist in that particular scenario. How does it feel for everything to come back full circle, right? Because I feel like trying to push this idea that Emiratis are privileged and racist, when there are several examples of this not being the case, at least to the degree that they are accused of it, is in and of itself racist. And I think you guys will agree,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, honestly.
So yeah. So anyway, TLDR, the reason because Emiratis can't get jobs is because they're already more privileged than the majority of the population. Sorry if I don't feel bad for a group of rich oh my god.
Rich
Yo,
oppressors, let's
who
Yeah.
wrote this?
I
I
wonder
think
if
it's
that person even lives
not
here.
Selena. Joe, I think it either someone who doesn't live here or like just a very new and uninformed expat. I'm inclined to think it's the latter, but it could literally be anything. Sorry if I don't feel bad for a group of rich oppressors who feel no sympathy for the people who made their country great in the first place. Lol. Not all problems are made equal, and there are expats facing worse situations in this country. But we won't see the UAE government passing laws to their lives easier. Passing laws to their lives easier. That is a very complete sentence. There totally isn't a missing word there. But anyway, yeah, this is quite interesting.
The missing word was passed.
The missing word was no. UAE government passing
No, I
laws
mean,
to make their
it was
lives
a
easier.
pun. It was
Yeah,
a pun.
passing. Oh, I get it. I get it.
Like,
Clever, clever. Because passing laws passed. Yeah, I
yeah.
get it. Clever.
It,
Passing laws to their lives easier. Lovely. It's a great
yeah.
comment. Makes no
That's-
sense, but it's a great comment. Yeah. But I think
Also, let's ask our guest Sarah about your view on the amortization program.
yeah, and also about
Yeah,
this whole situation. I think
yeah.
let's continue on the sort of stream that you were on, Sarah. So you were saying founded on this comment. Um, Go on, continue from where you were.
I think, so going back to what Daddy said about the amortization program, I think honestly, for our government to do so much for us is really great.
Mm-hmm.
And as a local, I couldn't feel more grateful
Mm-hmm.
because we know that not everyone has the same opportunities and the same, what's the word? I forgot the word slipped out of my mind.
That's fine. Take your time.
Yeah, not everyone has the same opportunities as we do. But however, to see it go south in some companies, I won't say all, but to see
Mm.
it go south in where I've heard some instance where because companies they need to meet their their percentage of locals where like you said earlier they would just hire locals and then not give them any work. And then let's say, for example, when it comes to performance review or something like that, they would just be like, "Oh yeah, that local we hired doesn't actually do anything," which,
Disgusting.
in a sense, just ends up backfiring on us.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's any solution to this, or I don't know if anything can be done about it.
You
But
have an
it's real.
extremely powerful voice as a local. I think y'all can. I think if y'all were to collectively go to the Ministry of Labor and tell them what's going on, those companies could shut down because they're doing it to their own people, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, but it's the same thing with this new program now that we have, which is called NAFIS for graduates or even people that still don't graduate to apply for jobs, where it's basically how it works is, let's say you do get a job opportunity and that job opportunity gives you said percentage of salary plus NAFIS would add on to that. But what companies end up doing, some companies, let me preface, not everyone, is that they're just gonna, they just end up playing stupid and they would be like, no, NAFIS is paying this salary. We're not paying you this amount. NAFIS is the one that's supposed to be paying you that amount. So
That's
what
not how
ends
it
up
works.
happening, yeah, so what ends up happening is that locals end up getting like the NAFIS percentage rather than, the company plus NAFIS paying them. And it's just insane how it's, even though our government is doing all that it can for example us as new graduates to find jobs, and then we hear stories where, for example, companies would do everything to just almost sabotage, you know now I won't say this is only specifically happening to locals. I can't really speak for the expats or know what their experience are here. I know it's difficult being away from home. I know it's very alienating. But at the same time, me opening the floor on my tiny social media platform hopefully just raises awareness that, hey, even us locals, you know, y- we need to find jobs. We have families that we need to support. We have, our own needs that we need to support. And it's not that we don't want to work. I know my generation, we want to work and we will do everything to almost, it's crazy how we do everything to almost not fit into that stereotype of yeah, you're a spoiled local, everything gets sent to you in a silver plate, and you're gonna find a job either way in the whole Wasla situation, and we have to work 10 times harder to almost prove that, hey, we're not that, which is crazy, insane, and bizarre. that it almost, and I remember I brought this up in my story where I remember specifically growing up feeling bad for being Emirati. And I grew up
That's
and I
outrageous,
went,
honestly.
yeah. I grew up and I had a Western education for most of my life. And so obviously I was surrounded by mostly expats and I fit in with mostly expat people rather than locals. And it was crazy how it didn't click with me until much later on how maybe it was not intentional, but I genuinely felt bad for feeling local. And I would almost sometimes play into that role that, yeah, locals are lazy. Yeah, locals don't want to work. Yeah, they're rich, they're spoiled, they're all that. But I'm not that. And I will never
It's
forget
unfortunate.
during ninth grade in middle school where a teacher specifically said to me, "You are the most un-Emirati I've ever met.
Yeah, I
I've
think you
ever
mentioned this
met."
to me before. You
And
mentioned this
it
to me before.
stuck with me. It really genuinely stuck with me. It was
Lovely.
so crazy that it makes you question your identity. What is it really to be an Emirati? Is there this mold that I have to be pushed into that, oh, I must speak English in like a very thick Arab accent, or
Yeah.
wrap my hijab a certain way, or I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
what is it to be? I am Emirati. I am. Oh, it's so crazy, 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 crazy. Ali,
Lovely.
you tell us your point of view as an Emirati man.
And I've been to many schools. I've been to many schools when I was a kid. This is I'm going to speak. This is all with other school kids, so it doesn't apply as does. The university is completely changed. I've been to many schools because I was often bullied by other Emiratis. For I was often bullied by other Emiratis, so I just kept changing schools. I didn't feel like I fit in for a while
I
until
love how
later.
to this day, I just wanted to make note of that. It's very precise. To this day, you don't actually have a reason because he said, it hurts. It hurts to hear. So I was bullied by other Emiratis because, and then you couldn't think of a reason.
Yeah,
So you said I
I
was
can
bullied
think
by
of a
other
reason.
Emiratis. To this
I can
day,
think of
you
the
can't
reason.
think of a reason,
No,
and
I
it's
can think
it's
of a
disturbing.
reason. It's just
But go on.
I'm not sure if I can say it. That's the
No,
thing.
go on. Okay then. In any case, go on.
Yeah. Well, it's because of just assumptions from just being different.
Mm. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yep.
I perfectly
Uh,
understand what you mean.
but after after a while, when I got to high school,
Mm.
I realized that I realized that basically the loudest ones that keep doing all of these things, they're the smallest groups usually.
Mm.
Most Emiratis I've met that aren't a part of those are hardworking and nice and don't, uh, they just don't care about any differences. They just care if you're just
Yeah.
well not completely disappointing everyone and yourself and everyone around you,
Yeah.
which is fair for anyone.
Mm.
They're just humans.
True.
That's why I felt I didn't fit in for a long time.
Mm.
And my also want to add my view on the monetization program.
Sure.
Um, the UAE is in a weird situation. It's one of the few countries where the citizens are the minority in the country.
Yeah. Geographically, that's true.
Yep. Which led to a weird situation where something I've noticed with at least within my circle. So other circles might be different, but there are quite a few jobs that Emiratis think is too low to go through for. I feel
Interesting.
like the Emiratization program is trying to make sure that every job has some Emirati representation, so that every job starts being fit for an Emirati, so that the Emiratis can actually do more types of work and know the value of work and doing things.
To some degree, yeah, and I think
Yeah.
this targets that perceived
And this
audience where
and
I like how it comes full circle. It targets that
yep,
group that people say is supposedly lazy or
Yeah,
this or that. And as you said,
it's
just to reemphasize, the people you're referring to say looking down on certain jobs are a very select minority. As you said, the top percentage,
actually
right?
actually they're looking down. They're not wanting to do certain jobs because they
Yeah.
don't fit. That's actually a bit more widespread than should be.
Mm-hmm.
So the Emiratization program is there. I feel like it's there to address that issue, to make people feel that they they should be able to do other jobs. For example, I'm not sure if you've recently gone to some car falls.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time has been hiring Emiratis recently. There's some car drivers, but I won't talk about that. I talk
Mm-hmm.
about how before about 10 years ago, an Emirati working. I'll start with 50 years ago. 50 years ago, an Emirati working as a cashier was fine.
Hmm.
That's when the UAE wasn't a country that was just starting. My dad worked as
Mm-hmm.
a cashier in his grocery store for a while,
Lovely.
but at a certain point, cashier jobs became looked down upon. So Emiratis were completely avoiding cashier jobs by any means necessary. Just if and it's just something that's unthinkable.
Yeah. I think
And that was
if
even
you
the
look
case
at
10 years
co-ops,
ago.
even today
Yep.
though, if you look at co-ops, from my
That
understanding, they employ mostly Emiratis, even on customer service and checkout positions. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
that was even the case around 10 years ago for most places. Banks, for example, had reception the cashiers as
Emirati
Emiratis for a
tellers.
while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep. But in most other places, they would you would never see an Emirati there. But if you go to a Carrefour recently, there's a high chance you can see Emiratis at the cashiers, and
Mm.
sometimes even only Emiratis at the cashiers.
Yeah. No,
So
it's
that's
possible,
a
and it's
change from the
happening again
program.
now. It's changing now
Yep.
because well,
It's
one of my
it's
closest
making
friends and a common friend of ours, just to add to this, Adi, sorry to cut you off, was offered a position by Mediclinic to be a receptionist. It paid quite handsomely, and she had the. Sorry, what was the name of the program you mentioned, Sarah? The one that gave a percentage bonus?
Nafis.
Nafis.
Nafis. It had a nice Nafis bonus as well on top of it. So it was actually coming out to be a good, really good working salary. And the position was that of a receptionist, right? Now, alhamdulillah, after some waiting and working, she actually got a much better position in a much better company. And I'd like to address that as well because it took her, as an Emirati engineering graduate, not an engineering graduate, as an Emirati science graduate, it took her a year and a half to find a job. So I don't want anyone telling me that, oh, it's so much easier for Emiratis to find a job because of Emiratization. Honey, no, it's not. Right? Because
Yeah.
yes, Emiratization is a factor, but then let's not forget something, right? People are still people, and at the end of the day, number of jobs is still limited compared to number of graduates in a vast majority of cases. So having an Emiratization program, especially in a large company, does not guarantee you entry. It's I guess that's another sort of leaf to that. But yeah, as I said, so just to go back to what you were saying, Ali, and then give the mic back to you. There's just a lot of places opening, a lot of positions that might be looked down upon for Emiratis that Emiratis are gladly accepting because it is better to work than to not work, which, as in and of itself, disproves this idea that Emiratis are lazy and don't want to work. And it's interesting to see as well the parent culture is sort of following. I don't think there is any parent in most Emirati families that I've seen. No parent is just going to be okay with their kid sitting at home not doing anything. It doesn't matter how Emirati you are, right? Sure, they'll like give you money to buy nice stuff or live a nice lifestyle,
Uh,
but they're not going to be okay with you sitting at home not doing anything forever, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, any
even
dad and any mom is going to tell you, "Hey, get up, try to find a job, make a
Yep.
name for yourself, do something." So it just again it shuts down on itself. This whole idea that
Yep.
Emiratis are lazy and don't want to work and just want to not work. No, that's not
Yep.
true. Emiratis are people like
Let,
us. They have parents. Emirati graduates have parents who are constantly telling them to find work as well, just like our parents. Those who do at least. So yeah. But anyway, Ali, yep. I can see you want to say something. Please take over.
Yeah, that's even that parents also that even if the unemployed son is just paying for himself, they still want him to find a job, do something.
Yeah, exactly.
My brother's been unemployed for 3 years. He's been trying to find jobs, but my parents are trying to encourage him to apply for more things, not just jobs, but also things like graduate school programs, just to do something.
To do work, exactly.
Yep. He's been supplying himself. He's been paying off everything on his own. So since he saved up from working for a while, but still he's been trying to find a job for 3 years.
Yeah.
Over 3 years now.
Yeah.
Actually, all right. Corona was 3 years ago. It's been over 4, maybe 5 years now,
Subhanallah.
and he's
Honestly,
still
yeah.
having a hard time finding a job. I think
Yeah.
last year he got about 4 interviews in a whole year of trying to find a job.
It's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah,
The fresh graduate market may have higher chances for Emiratis because of Emiratization programs and focus on fresh graduates, but after that, support is still limited.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. There we go, right? There is a program, but again, the number of jobs is still limited. It's a
Yeah.
very marginal increase in the opportunity, right? Okay. Now, the antithesis of this argument is in some majors, like engineering, nowadays, especially since COVID. And by the way, COVID, let's not, whoever wrote that comment, let's not forget the like 10 billion pound, not even elephant, zoo in the room that is COVID, right? COVID has caused almost all companies to stop hiring altogether, right? So it's very difficult for them to open up any positions, let alone positions for Emiratis. So when people make an argument, I'm talking to myself here that, in some places the only positions that are opening up are for Emiratis. Yeah, because they have to. They'd rather not open up positions for anybody. That's the truth, right? So really, you have to consider COVID, and you have to consider the many other things that are affecting the job market in and of itself today, right? One example of which, I don't want to sound like some sort of guru because I'm not. One example of which is from experience and from perspective, engineering firms really don't like jumping to hire new talent, right? Because engineering firms do specialized work. And for them to engage new talent, they need to have the extra resources to train that new talent. COVID has depleted almost everyone's extra sources. Those that are still up are lucky to even be functional because of COVID. And this is true globally, not just in the UAE, right? So, to all those that have this perception of, Emiratization program, this, that, Emiratis, well, this, that, Baba, consider the bigger picture. Consider the employment market in general. Consider how difficult it is in and of itself. And then Sarah and Ali, the points that you made about it actually backfiring on locals, wherein, those that are sort of, feel that they've been forced to Emiratize are basically wasting good resources by not giving them work because they think they'll do more harm than good because of this whole narrative that, unfortunately, and I have to admit it, expats have propagated, right? They've experienced in either their workplaces or in their school life, like myself, a loud minority, right? And I'm sure this quote will resonate very well. The emptiest minds always speak the loudest, right? Because it's an echo chamber, right? They've experienced a small minority exhibiting the exact behaviors that they're describing, and so as conveniently as humans do, they've generalized. And we cannot deny we like to generalize. We like to make things simpler. Unfortunately, in such cases, generalization makes things a whole lot worse. And so they've created this culture of Emiratis are spoiled. Yeah, I'm currently sitting on a call right now with 2 Emiratis who are undoubtedly in a sea of individuals that I know. I know like a handful of geniuses, right? I'm talking specifically in engineering right now. And if Ali doesn't make the top 3, then I don't know who does. Like, if I had to see top 3 engineering geniuses right now, Ali is one
Ali
of them.
mashallah is on
And
top of
he's
them.
which is this guy. Like, it's not even right, there's this perception of nerdiness, and I guess we're praising the new coast here, but there's this perception of, oh, smart engineers have to be this way, have to be nerdy, this, that. It's the way in which Ali processes information and uses it that makes him a genius. And that quality has distinctly to do with himself, not the fact that he's Emirati, not the fact that he's not Emirati, right? And that's the thing. If you're gonna decrease your perspective, and you're gonna think that, it never made sense to me, And I want to tell a small story as well, here, because it's relevant. Unless, by the way, guys, you want to interrupt me, you want to say something at this point. There's a small thing that I wanted to sort of world build.
No, Adi, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, it baffles me how any company, any organization, anywhere, and this I'm able to say, by the way, because alhamdulillah, yani, I'm the son of a business owner, right? It completely baffles me, and my father agrees with this 100%, because he said it himself, how a company can afford to hire someone, pay them a salary, and then not engage them for some kind of work. It entirely dumbfounds and confuses me. How could you even begin to do that without even giving the person a chance, and then having the audacity, as you said, and I'm sure you have the case studies to prove it, and obviously we have to keep it anonymous, you have the audacity to then in performance reviews say, oh yeah, those Emiratis didn't do shit, as if that's going to make people change, that's going to make the government change their laws or whatever. I don't understand how some people would be so toxic and some people would be so stupid, right? So my father, back when he was in Bahrain, we were in Bahrain for a while. He worked at a company called Hilti, and so he found out over there. Not I don't think it was in Hilti specifically, but I brought that up to sort of set the scene. But while he was in Bahrain working at his company in Hilti, he found out that there were some other organizations, there were some other companies that were unfortunately participating in this practice of, hiring Bahrainis because the government told them to, and then not giving them work. And so he investigated, and he tried to look around, and he's like, oh, okay, this is happening. And he identified two individuals. And then I don't know what company they were working for, I don't know what they were doing, but he specifically sort of contacted these two individuals, and he spoke to their manager or whatever it was, and he said these two individuals need to be given work, even if it's driving from place to place dropping documents, even if it's as a receptionist, they need to be given work, and they must be given work at all costs. And he was telling me, fast forward to how many years, both of them are extremely successful. One of them is a millionaire, right? So, what I'm saying is, like, you're sitting on talent, right? Because you think that talent cannot do anything for you. If this podcast reaches any such employer, by the way, I want to say with full chest and full authority, you are a very stupid individual. And if you decide not to do anything about your stupidity, my friend, you are doing yourself and your organization more harm than good, right? And it's
Very
beautiful.
bold.
Because I said that without naming any organizations, right? Without naming absolutely anybody. So if this reaches, a particular owner that has this particular perception, let me be very clear, because there's a method to this madness. I don't just say things without foundation because I don't want to go jail, right? There's a method to this madness. And I just want to say that if your reason for not giving them, if you have any form of philosophy which says it's okay to because actually the law is on my side here. Pretty sure it's more illegal to hire someone and not give them work and then lie about their performance than it is to not hire an Emirati. So,
Yeah.
so I'm sure the law is on my side here when I say, if you're making that mistake, please rethink your choices as an individual and as an owner of an organization, right? Yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say. I hope that the story that I sort of came up with maybe added value to everything that my friends have been saying here. And yeah, honestly, I think that about wraps it. Both of y'all, do you have any comments, anything you'd like to add?
I just want to conclude it on
Yeah.
Going back to that idea of Emiratis being lazy or not particularly performing very well at work, there's always going to be a group of people, either Emiratis or expats, that are going to be lazy. That is just found in every job, and it's not just specific to one group of people. But however, I just hope that more awareness is being brought about to this issue, especially with now more graduates are coming about trying to find jobs in a very, very, very sparse job market in a very difficult time. And don't be stupid, people. Don't be stupid.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. It had to be said. I'm glad the right
Had to
person
be
and the most.
said.
Yep.
I'm,
Yep.
I'm glad the right person and the most relevant person, which is our guest right now, is the one who said it. You know, and I say the same thing as well, right? Um, Honestly, and if you want to end it in even more general fashion, if you're going to let race dictate how you feel about a person, not their talent, not their work, not what you know about them, not what you don't know about them, just their race. If you're going to let that dictate how you feel about them as an individual, how good of a person are you really? Genuinely. How much do you think? How shallow minded can you be to let race specifically, dictate how you feel about a person? I ask you, how different does that make you than those individuals back in the days in places like Europe and places like America that would look down upon certain peoples and certain races and see them fit for only certain roles, such as slavery, low level jobs, and whatnot? I ask you, at the root of that ideology, is it not the very same thing? A perception that this certain people is a certain way and therefore only suited for certain things. And with that, I think that was a very apt way to end it, if slightly dramatic, but I think it serves its purpose. I'd like to thank you, Sarah, for coming on and
Thank you,
talking
thank you.
so openly with us on chiefly the two topics that we've discussed. And thank you so very much for taking on the time. I think that's 90 recorded minutes now, more or less, and it would make for great content, great audience, and hopefully is well received. To all those listening in to this in whatever form or whatever medium you are, thank you so much for tuning in and thank you so much for listening. We look forward to, and in fact, we crave your comments and your feedback on the issue at hand, on the topics discussed, and whatever well you may have to say. With that, thank you all very much for joining us. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Ali
Thank
the
you
Water
for
Bottle.
having me.
Thank you, Sarah.
And really appreciate it. You're welcome. You're very welcome, guys. This has
Thank-
been your host, Ali Adnan Rada, with my
And
co-host, Ali the Water
I know
Bottle
what
Al
about.
Majidi, and our wonderful guest, Sarah, who is at visual.sarah on Instagram. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Do check out her work. Signing off. Wa alaikum
And
assalam wa rahmatullah wa barakat. Say it, Ali. I
and
know you
remember
want
to
to say it.
hydrate.
Thank you.